Our next speaker is Dr. Kalpana Murthy, Senior Consultant, Uvea and Ocular Inflammations and Cataract Surgery from Prabha Eye Clinic, with a presence and stature of her own. She will be talking on recalcitrant anterior uveitis. On to you, Doctor.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chitra. And at the outset, I would like to thank the ARC and Dr. Chitra for this invitation. So the topic which was given to me was recalcitrant anterior uveitis. And I would like to start by defining what is recalcitrant anterior uveitis. So it is a uveitis which is difficult to treat or control. And through this presentation, I would just highlight 5 case scenarios and try my best to give my 2 cents with each case. So my first case is a 40-year-old lady, and she was referred to me for a second opinion for a recalcitrant granulomatous anterior uveitis and in the left eye. So she was completely investigated for TB, sarcoid, syphilis, and autoimmune profile. And at the time of examination, she was on methotrexate since the last 1.5 years. And because of poor control of inflammation, she was also started on a biologic, which is tofasitinib, along with topical steroids. And she had increased intraocular pressures, and she was on a combination of prostaglandin and Combigan. Now, when I saw her eye, this is what it is. And I'm sure by now you would have guessed from what the previous speakers had highlighted. We are seeing pigmented clumps, and then there is increased intraocular pressure, and there is sectoral iris atrophy. So this is a clear-cut viral uveitis. And I had to do a PCR mainly to tell the patient that this is viral, because she refused to believe that. And this patient had a PCR which was positive for varicella zoster. And we had 2 flags here. She was on biologics as well as a prostaglandin analog. So we stopped all those drugs and we started her on antivirals. And if you see 2 days later itself, you start seeing the decrease in the pigmented KPs. She started feeling a lot better. The pressures were automatically coming down. And this is 2 weeks later. I mean, dramatic improvement in the whole thing. So basically, what would have happened is, I think the initial ophthalmologist must have missed this iridoparesis. So this is something which is very common and should not be mistaken. If you see granulomatous KPs like this with a mild iridoparesis itself, it takes quite some time to develop iris atrophic changes. So this is a period where you can miss the diagnosis. So my lesson 1 would be revisit the clinical diagnosis when things are not going as per your plan. You may have to pause, do a complete examination one more time, and again order investigations again, which could be local or it could be systemic. So this is my second case, which is a 30-year-old healthy male, again had recurrent non-granulomatous anterior uveitis. And this was going on for the last 3 months. And the treating ophthalmologist had done an initial workup of a complete hemogram, rheumatoid factor, VDRL, and everything was negative. And as usual, because it's a young young male, we keep asking leading questions. Do you have low backaches? And because of work from home, this has become quite common, and they say yes. So this was a little odd because I was expecting this would be a B27 related uveitis, but usually I get the blood sugars done in all my patients with uveitis. And it was horrifying to see blood sugars as high as 480, totally asymptomatic otherwise. HbA1c so high, and all the other parameters negative. He actually did very well with just a course of topical steroids and control of blood sugars. So this is my lesson 2. Always look for triggers for inflammation. And I think this is something which we essentially forget, to get the basic random blood sugars in all our patients. Also look for infection foci like dental caries, UTIs, streptococcal throat infections, GI infections, if the patient is on certain drugs, especially topical. And nowadays, we are seeing recent vaccinations as well. So you would expect a flare in inflammation. So ideally, you need to keep this in mind when you're looking for recalcitrant inflammations. My third case is a 5-year-old girl with oligoarticular GIA. She was on oral steroids and injection methotrexate, and she has been managed with the pediatric rheumatologist, and this has been going on for the last 2 years. But every time we would stop the oral steroid, she would develop this kind of an inflammation again. So at this point of time, because of financial constraints, he added mycophenolate again, though it was a little better, but still we could never take her off oral steroids. And at this point of time, she also got a joint swelling again. And this is when they added tofasitinib, and there is a good control of inflammation. So basically, this is an anterior uveitis, which was recalcitrant, and this was because of a systemic disease, which was also not under control. So this is a case 4, which is in contrast to the case 3. Here, this is a 50-year-old lady with rheumatoid arthritis. And since a long time, she was on it for 7 years with HCQS, leflunomide, and methotrexate. And she was on maximum dose of methotrexate. And she kept developing sclerouveitis. And eventually, she was shifted to injection methotrexate, and she had a maintenance dose of oral steroids, and she could not afford biologics. And at this point of time, though her systemic RA was under control, she developed diabetes because of the chronic use of steroids, and even her eye pressures started increasing. So this was the eye. She had a very mild inflammation. It was not very severe at all. But each time I would taper off topicals, she would get back a flare. And the rheumatoid arthritis part was stable from the systemic angle. So at this point of time, we needed to take a decision whether we needed to add something more aggressive. So since biologics was out of question, we thought, let's try cyclophosphamide, because at this point of time, this is a big decision to make, because the amount of inflammation which we are seeing is very mild and the systemic disease is quite under control. But we went ahead with the cyclophosphamide. And what is interesting is sometimes you need that little pep up of aggressive medications to achieve the disease in total remission. And she's doing well now since the last couple of years with cyclophosphamide, and even has had a cataract surgery without any recurrences in her inflammation. So my lesson 3 is, if the inflammation if it is associated with a systemic disease, I think we need to keep even the treating rheumatologist, the patient. It's basically a teamwork, and everybody should be on the same page. So my last case is a 35-year-old lady who presented with hypopyon anterior uveitis. Again, this was unilateral alternating since the last 3 years. She is a B27 positive, but no systemic disease, and she had no triggers as well. Now, I started her on oral steroids as well as methotrexate, and she was on maximum doses of methotrexate. She was taking 25 milligrams per week, but I could not reduce her oral steroids to less than 20 milligrams per day. Now, in conjunction with the treating rheumatologist, we said, okay, let's shift her to injection and see if it will make a difference. We could just reduce it to just around 10, but she still continued to start having recurrences. And at this point of time, we added mycophenolate, and usually 2 grams is sufficient, but she still continued to develop inflammations, and I could not really reduce oral steroids less than around 7.5 or 5. She used to keep getting back recurrences. So we had to, before shifting her to biologics, we thought, okay, let's try to step up mycophenolate a little more and keep her on a very low dose of topical steroids for a while. And we also asked her to make some lifestyle changes. And at this point of time, there have been a lot of articles on autoimmune disease and the gut microbiome. And so we asked her to start making dietary modifications as well, avoid gluten. And actually, we were surprised that, we could get her to this control, but she still continues these medications. But we've been able to operate her eye as well, because she developed a total cataract, and she's doing fine. This is her last visit 2 days ago, and she's doing fine. So my lesson 4 is, these are the cases which usually, present a big therapeutic challenge, mainly because we don't know what is the pathogenesis in these cases. And we are also trying out new drugs by trial and error method.
And at the same point of time, the patient also, you're also dealing with a lot of anxiety, frustration, and fear from the patient's side. So at this point of time, I would like to add this nice quote from William Osler, that the good physician treats the disease and the great physician treats the patient who has the disease. So the most important part, I feel, when we treat these recalcitrant uveitis is communication. I think we need to create a sense of calm and confidence in front of the patient and explain all options of treatment which are available to the patient and involve the patient in the decision making. So this is my last slide, and which kind of summarizes whatever we have discussed in the last 2 hours. I think it is important in any uveitis, in particular recalcitrant ones, that we need to be attentive always, and we may need to revisit our diagnosis time and again and adapt to newer symptoms and signs. I thank you all for a patient hearing.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Kalpana. Amazing talk. But I think I should start sharing my screen and give my presentation and then keep the discussion for the end.